What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my top 20 sleepers. These guys are all day 3 selections that I think could either be starters this year or within a year's time, and I'll be sure to differentiate who I think falls under which bucket. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button if you do. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, want to see more football content. And of course, let me hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. There's no right answers just yet. We're not at the season, so no one knows who these day 3 surprise picks are going to be. But today, I'm going to give you 20 names who I think can develop into starters right away or within a year. Now, let me hear your list down below. At least give me a sleeper from your favorite team that you think could develop into a starter rather quickly. Let's waste no time. We're doing this in position order. No quarterbacks to talk about. Clayton Tune was kind of interesting, maybe with Arizona, and maybe he gets some traction. And if he starts over Kyler Murray while Murray's rehabbing, maybe. But honorable mention to Clayton Tune. But we start with Roschon Johnson. Look, I've been saying for a while now, I think Khalil Herbert's going to be a great dynasty pick because I think now it's his backfield. I love the blocking scheme, and when we got to see him play, he's been super explosive and super productive, and he's been a fantasy star. So I was like, hey, this is going to be his breakout year. And then the Bears draft Roschon Johnson in the 4th round. I'm like, well, that complicates things. And at least I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch between Johnson and Herbert. And because of that, I think Johnson falls into the more immediate contributor bucket. But he is a day 3 selection, so he fits the kind of fits the mold here. And highest missed tackle rate of any running back in the country last year, 99th percentile all time using PFF's data there. I mean, when we got to see him in Texas, he was super slippery. Now he's not uber elusive, but he runs hard, and he's got a ton of power and enough, kind of rudder steerability to be able to set up bad angles for defenders. And because of that, he's got enough, ability to make you miss. And then, of course, the contact balance. He takes a hit, and it's almost like nothing touched him. So yeah, I could maybe it's he's the kind of thunder to Herbert's dash, but even he ran 4.51, so you got 2 4.5 running backs. I don't know if anybody here is really the lightning or the dash in the backfield, but man, I can totally see Roschon Johnson ultimately winning that job, especially in the event of a Khalil Herbert injury, which would be tragic for my early Khalil Herbert breakout season predictions. Then we get to the next running back, Izzy Abanikanda. This one's tough because that running back committee is just so loaded with names right now. Breece Hall, 2nd round pick. Michael Carter, early day 3 selection. And then you also got Zonovan Knight, who played some good football last year. But I think Abanikanda and Breece Hall are about to become the top 2 guys in that rotation. As much as I do like Michael Carter at a UNC, and I thought Zonovan Knight was pretty solid last year, Abanikanda and Breece Hall are perfect fits for that zone blocking scheme. They have the home run ability plus great elusiveness, and Hall's an awesome receiver. So I could see where we didn't really get to see what Abanikanda could do as a receiving back, but I could see him becoming the guy who gets some more early down work, and because of that, Breece Hall slides into more of that 3rd down passing situations type of role. But I think ultimately Hall will get more touches. So it just comes down to what downs these guys see the field. But Abanikanda's low 4.4 speed, 40+ inch vertical showcases a ton of explosiveness. That offensive line at New York's really, really solid. The blocking scheme's going to help him out a ton, and he's a perfect fit for that zone blocking scheme. Whether he went to San Francisco or Miami or New York, I was going to love wherever Abanikanda went if it was a zone blocking scheme, and that's where he finds himself in New York. So I could see him becoming a really, really solid contributor in that backfield. He's not going to overtake Breece Hall in my book, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's that second fiddle in the rotation and committee. And because of that, it's like, do I play this guy as a flex because he's so efficient? He may not get the world's amount of, leading amount of touches, but when he gets them, man, he's really, really good. And then the next running back, this one is much more a future one. I'm not saying Eric Ray, right away is replacing Saquon Barkley. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that. Saquon's one of the 5 best running backs in the league, point blank and simple. But he's on the franchise tag right now. And I know the Giants are working on an extension for Saquon, but no extension to talk about just yet, at least at the time of me recording this. And could Eric Ray be the guy of the future? He was a guy who played really, really well at the Combine, or at the Senior Bowl, good numbers at the Combine, and was just kind of everyone's sleeper day 3 running back, right? And because of that, it's like, man, I could totally see him becoming a drafted stash, future starter. And he just runs hard, has a lot of those same qualities that, make me like a Roschon Johnson on a day 3. And has, enough elusiveness that kind of gets me excited about, an Abanikanda. He's kind of this jack of all trades, maybe not a master of any. But yeah, I'm really intrigued by what this fit means long term. And again, I don't think he's superseding Saquon Barkley. Definitely don't think that. But if they don't work out an extension with Saquon Barkley, I would not be surprised in the slightest, whatever the phrase is, if Eric Ray becomes the starter year 2 of his rookie contract for the New York Giants. So therefore, awesome value and definitely a sleeper pick. And then we get DeWayne McBride. I have been talking about this guy nonstop of late, so I'll be relatively short here. But I think if not by the end of this year, I think if he is the guy getting the most touches by the end of this season, either it's a really bad season for the Vikings, which no Minnesota fan wants to hear right now, or Dalvin Cook got hurt. Or they end up trading him, too, because, I mean, there's still rumors and rumblings of that. So whether it's an injury or a trade of Dalvin Cook, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of this year if DeWayne McBride is their leading, guy in regards to touches per game. And then furthermore, this is going to be the last year Dalvin Cook is in Minnesota if he stays there throughout the entire season. And I believe it's the last year Alexander Mattison is under contract. So I'm looking at DeWayne McBride and Ty Chandler as the top 2 names in that committee moving forward. I think McBride absolutely should deserve that type of opportunity. One of the best running backs in college football, both from a production standpoint, PFF grades, and he's explosive hitting the hole, has good vision, contact balance, and while it's not like 75, 80-yard touchdowns taken to the house, it's 10 to 20-yard chunks at a time, and that's more than enough to warrant a starting position. So it may not be right away, but it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if McBride ends up finishing this year as the leading rusher, maybe like week 17, week 18, he has the most rush attempts. But certainly by his year 2, I could see him taking over as the lead guy in that committee. And then we get Charlie Jones. So kind of a lot of the same stuff I'm kind of projecting with these future guys like Eric Gray replacing Saquon and DeWayne McBride replacing Dalvin Cook. Charlie Jones was one of the 5 best route runners in this class. So I'm like, dude, could this guy be your Tyler Boyd replacement? You got him in the 4th round, so not a bad place to kind of draft and stash this guy. And again, the route running's there, really good working over the middle of the field. To me, this makes a lot of sense as that Tyler Boyd replacement. And on top of that, Cincinnati is fantastic at being able to address immediate needs while also future-proofing the roster, like Dax Hill last year. He brought benefit immediately, but also this was like, hey, he is going to replace Jesse Bates, and we all kind of saw that coming. To me, this signals that, hey, Charlie Jones is going to be our guy in the slot. And they also took Andre Yoshevich, but to me, that's an outside wide receiver, field-stretching type, kind of an Auden Tate, almost replacement a couple years late. But to me, Charlie Jones could be the guy in a year's time that replaces Tyler Boyd. And, then you're letting Boyd walk. You get a comp pick when somebody else signs him, and you're getting a cheap replacement there when you have to pay Burrow. You're going to have to pay Chase. You're going to have to pay Higgins. And, man, I mean, this is the type of team building that has really put Cincinnati in the spot that they are right now. I mean, obviously, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, but the process, too, is going to keep them as one of the best teams in the AFC for a long time coming. Kayshon Boutte. I mean, this is a sleeper that you could have anticipated being in this video beforehand. There was one spot. The entire draft community was like, man, if there's one place that Kayshon Boutte can go that can kind of reignite our hope that this guy looks like what he did at the beginning of 2021, it'd be the New England Patriots. And damn if the draft community didn't make it happen. So now we get to see if Bill Belichick can resurrect another maybe quote-unquote disgruntled wide receiver and, put away with some of the off-field issues that have been there. And, who knows? Maybe it was just Brian Kelly, I'm a Notre Dame fan, and there's plenty of things Brian Kelly does that kind of irk me and rub me the wrong way when he was at Notre Dame. And I know he's done that, prior stops before, including Cincinnati, and obviously his tenure at LSU record might have been fine last year, but the whole faking an accent and the recruiting, that whole video was super crazy. If you're on social media, you know that Brian Kelly is not necessarily the world's most favorite NFL or college football coach. And because of that, I could see where that did kind of rub Kayshon Boutte the wrong way, and it was a change in everything, and I could see where that didn't float well with him. That being said, he better get over it because New England, it's going to be Belichick's way or the highway. So anyways, we've gone down a long tangent there. But if there's a place for me to kind of think that Boutte works out, it's New England. And whether it's the slot or it's the outside, I think he could do both. And every time I'm like, yeah, Kayshon Boutte wasn't great this year. His athletic testing was abysmal. I just turned back on those first 6 games of 2021, and I'm like, damn, dude, this guy can absolutely play. So he's a true wild card. We don't know what we're getting with Kayshon Boutte, but if it's the first 6 games of 2021, he's definitely a sleeper. And New England needs wide receiver production. So if it's Boutte who's showing out in practice and in preseason, he'll get ops pretty much right away. Then we get Zach Kuntz going to the Jets. And again, just to preface, this is probably future starter territory, maybe immediately, but Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzomah both have very cuttable contracts next offseason. And by cutting those two guys, you'd save about $18 million for, fine tight ends, like whatever tight ends at the NFL level. And Kuntz has year over year been gaining weight, and I think that'll continue this year with the Jets, while also being a freak athlete and running, one of the best 40 times we saw from any tight end this year, and putting his athleticism fully on display at the combine, not just the 40, but everything. And it's like, man, Penn State liked him, and Penn State's kind of tight end U of sorts at the college football level. So what did they see? Okay, now he's gaining weight. The athleticism still plays. Yeah, he got hurt this last year at ODU, but now we get a chance to put him in our building, make sure he finishes climbing up in regards to weight, and we get to see what he's all about. So I could totally see him by year 2 becoming the lead tight end for the Jets. And if they do get year 2 of Aaron Rodgers, Zach Kuntz running the seam up the middle, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot of fun with that. I mean, it's going to be Robert Tonyan who can actually move. So that's going to be a big part of that Jets offense. So maybe right away, maybe he supersedes Uzomah and Conklin, but I'm more so thinking by year 2 that he becomes that lead tight end for the Jets. And doing it as a 7th rounder, that's rare to find. Cardinals, I think there's plenty of people who are saying this. John Gaines, this is a plug-and-play starter at left guard or center because I think he's guard center flexible. I'll anticipate guard for right now, but great movement skills. He'll be a great fit for that zone blocking scheme. And again, they need a starter at both center and guard. So Gaines can easily step into that. Played really well at UCLA, so this one, obvious, easy one for me to kind of peg here. But getting a guy in the 4th round to be a starter makes a lot of sense, and therefore he qualifies as a sleeper, but maybe a more obvious one at that. Oluwatimi, kind of the same stuff I've been talking about in the last few videos. He's kind of like McBride, where he's been somebody I've talked about so much that I'll be quick here, but he's going to be the starting center. I'd be shocked if he's not the starting center week 1 for Seattle. Barring injury, I think this guy should be their go-to guy. It was the one area on their offensive line where it's like, yeah, they need an upgrade. They can get better at guard, but they need a center, and I think Oluwatimi is a good zone blocking fit. And played well enough at Michigan to earn the spot to try to win that job right away, and I think he will throughout training camp. So yeah, 5th rounder becomes a starter. That's a sleeper. All right, next one, Luke Whippler, and same sort of deal. Now this one is probably a year in the future because I think Ethan Posich played pretty well last year and was a really quality addition late in free agency for the Browns and paid dividends. So I think they're going to have Posich be the guy this year at center, but then they're going to turn it over to Whippler, a guy who played in-state, really great blocking, zone blocking fit. May not be insane or elite on the move like a Joe Tippmann or a John Michael Schmitz, but he's not that's not a weakness of his game. And he's been super productive at Ohio State, stays in state. Yeah. I mean, the story kind of writes itself. This is the Browns' future starter at center. Then we get Andrew Vorhees at guard, another guy I've been talking about a ton over the last couple of videos, but this is a future starter at left guard here for the Ravens. Perfect gap scheme fit. And I think Cleveland can move her to right guard. That's where he played and a little bit of playing time they got last season. And it's the last year of Kevin Zeitler as a starter. So I think it's going to be Cleveland and Vorhees post-Zeitler era. So yeah, anytime you can draft a starter in the 7th round, that's a sleeper. All right, next guard, interior offensive lineman, another 7th round selection here, Nick Broker. Played left tackle, moved to left guard at Ole Miss, and I think the Bills, after 1 year, might have a guy who's going to become their left guard starter. Right now, it's slated to be Connor McGovern, but also by next offseason, they might be willing to move on from Mitch Morse. And in that event, I think it makes a lot of sense that Connor McGovern slides over to play center, which he has done in the past, and then Nick Broker steps into a starting role at left guard. He was solid at Ole Miss, both in pass pro and in the run game. Good enough athlete to get out and move, fit that blocking scheme. So, I think this is a future starter. So, a lot of these sleeper feel like offensive linemen that within a year are going to become starters for this team, but that did feel like a spot in the draft where a lot of these guys fell, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it paid dividends for all these, especially contenders, like the Ravens drafting a future starter, the Bills drafting a future starter, Seattle made the playoffs last year. They got a starting center, so it really worked out for a lot of really good teams getting some really quality draft and stash guys or draft and plug-in starters on day 3. And then Jaquelin Royce, we're going back to the Vikings here. I tried to limit it to one guy per team. But man, Jaquelin Roy for a team that desperately needed IDL help, I think could easily be a plug-and-play guy, at least on early downs, because he's a really solid run defender. And my thing with Jaquelin Roy is like way too early rankings. I had him in my top 4. I thought this was going to be an insane IDL class, and ultimately we do get 4 interior defensive linemen in round 1 with Carter, Brzee, Cansey, and Mozzie Smith. But man, I was like, dude, Carter's going to be a top 5 pick. Brezee's going to be a top 10 pick. Jaquelin Roy could be an easy top half the first rounder. And then you got Siaki Ika, who's going to be a first rounder as well. And obviously 2 of those names did stick. Brzee still fell a little bit later than what I initially thought. But then, you get Cansey going top 20. You get Mozzie Smith going 26 to Dallas. So we got 4 IDL members. But once you take Jaquelin Roy and you say, hey, this is not a guy this is not a first rounder. And once you get that out of your head and you remove that, expectation maybe, he looks really damn good. Like, he's a really solid player. And I thought he would be a game kind of changer, a guy who could take a game over, and he just wasn't. He is good against the run, and he's a good pass rusher, but he is not going to win you games. But for the Vikings, to hell with that, man. You just need any help you can get. Like, if Dean Lowry is starting, you need to be looking for someone better. No disrespect to Dean Lowry. But I think Jaquelin Roy can be that immediate plug-and-play starter there at the 3-4 DN spot. Give him a little bit of pass rush, but really be good against the run, and that's something the Vikings can benefit from right away. And to get him in the 5th round, again, makes him a good sleeper. Keandre Coburn's a little bit of a projection. I'm not as confident about this one as I was with Jaquelin Roy, but 6th round pick, looked pretty good at the Shrine Bowl, good production, stopping the run, freakish frame. You pair him up next to Chris Jones, that's a great mentor-mentee relationship. And I think at worst could be an upgrade over Derek Nottie, or at least a reset of the Derek Nottie kind of player and position. And I mean that by getting younger and cheaper the position. You're just kind of resetting while having the same type of dude in that spot. Just different name and again, younger and cheaper. But yeah, I think there's some upside there. He's a good athlete, and I think pairing him up with Chris Jones is a way to kind of tap into that potential as a pass rusher. So I think they get some run defense help, and they get it in the 6th round. Never a bad thing for Kansas City to add. Nick Herbig. Yeah, this felt like a Steelers pick in the making, and I really wanted to slide him into my last mock draft to Pittsburgh at 80. And I almost thought they were going to do that at 93 instead of Darnell Washington. But ultimately, they get him in the 4th round at 132. And I think he's going to be playing a little bit of off-ball linebacker. I think he's going to be playing a little bit of edge. As of now, Pittsburgh has not added that 3rd edge rusher that they like to prioritize. And I think Herbig can do a little bit of that. And I think he can play a little bit of off-ball linebacker. Now, I have to say this. I'm not a big Nick Herbig guy. They got his brother on roster, which is also like a continuation of, I guess, something that Pittsburgh covets. To me, for both linebacker and edge, he's a little small, short arms, and not that athletic for that position. So I was like, what do people see? Yes, he has good tape and he plays well, but the same can be said about Zach Bond, and those issues and those limitations and that tweener status ultimately caught up to Zach Bond. And I'm a little worried it does the same thing here to Nick Herbig. But at the same time, he could be the complete opposite of Zach Bond. We just don't know. Just because it happened to Bond doesn't mean it's going to happen to Herbig. So for Pittsburgh to find a potential, off-ball linebacker starter / 3rd edge rusher in the 4th round, really, really solid. And those are going to be positions that they covet. And also, Herbig might just straight up play off-ball linebacker, be an upgrade over Layden Roberts, and then just tap into his pass rush ability through blitzes up the middle, which is something Pittsburgh has long sought to do. Then we get Tre Tomlinson to the Rams. One I've talked about ad nauseum here. They drafted a starter in the 6th round. I mean, whether it's in the slot or it's in the outside, they drafted a guy with great tape under his belt at TCU, played for one of the best defenses in college football. Little handsy, had some penalty issues, but I think that can get cleaned up at the next level. And the Rams have a great track record of making it work with these small corners on the outside, Darius Williams and Troy Hill. So I mean, Tre Tomlinson could be the next one in the line of that, or he's an upgrade at the slot. Either way you spin it, the Rams drafted to start in the 6th round. I'd be shocked if Tomlinson's not starting by the end of the year. And then we get to the Panthers and Jammie Robinson. This one's a little more tricky because, I'm like, dude, Von Bell, love that strong safety ad. And, you got Jeremy Chin kind of playing this nickel strong safety role. Love that. And you putting him close to the line of scrimmage, you're going to get my stamp of approval. I think he could supersede Xavier Watts, though. And, Xavier Woods. And Woods is typically a free safety, but with Ejiro Evero coming over, it's going to be quarters. So it's just playing a lane. And, the true free safety isn't necessarily what we're looking at here. It's not like it's going to be Xavier Woods over the top, single high. No, it's going to be split safety, and it's going to be controlling 1/4 of the field. And in that case, Jammie Robinson might just be better. Like, I don't know. I'm a big Jammie Robinson believer. Played a lot of different positions at Florida State, slot, strong safety, free safety. So versatile chess piece. So maybe that's what they ultimately are trying to tap into, is a guy that can move around. But I could ultimately see him surpassing Woods in the depth chart and becoming that other split safety right there with the likes of Von Bell. So I think he could earn that starting safety spot, not necessarily banking on it, but also Xavier Woods is on a 1-year deal, so he could become a future starter. So maybe it's now. I definitely think he'll become a starter by the end of his rookie contract, though, for the Panthers. And then Antonio Johnson, another 5th round safety that I really, really liked. And, like Robinson, I think should have gone higher. Robinson had really rough testing numbers. Johnson's weren't necessarily great, but this whole safety class kind of let me down when it came to the pro days and their combine numbers. But yeah, Johnson, another name I've talked about ad nauseum this week. So starting upgrade there at the nickel over Trey Herndon or Rayshon Jenkins replacement. Either way you spin it, this guy is either an immediate starter or a starter within a year's time, and they draft him in the 5th round. My one concern maybe is he comes from a zone-heavy defense, and how does that translate to Jacksonville's scheme? But I think they'll make it work, and nickel / safety are the weakest spots on that side of the ball, in my opinion, for Jacksonville, and I think Antonio Johnson helps alleviate those issues. And then Chris Smith going to the Raiders, another name that I talked about best value picks video. To get him where they did, it's worth a shot in the dark. Another guy with really abysmal testing numbers that disappointed because he looks so much more athletic on tape. But that being said, he was the over-the-top free safety and a playmaker for two of the best defenses of all time, and in 2021, the best defense in college football history, in my opinion. So yeah, let's see what that's all about at the NFL level. Let's see if he can be the outlier and exceed the expectations maybe set by his pro day numbers, because they were rough and they made me sour on him. And I was already a pretty big Chris Smith guy. And then if it does work out, hey, he's a guy that's going to play over the top, which they don't really have that true free safety other than Trevon Merrick. But Merrick's so versatile and so good that if he moves over to play the nickel and strong safety, he'll be just fine. And then Chris Smith gives you that true playmaking ball hawk up top. And you got to think about those New England guys. McDaniel, Ziegler coming over from New England. They're looking for their Devin McCourty. And Chris Smith, I'm not saying he's going to be Devin McCourty. He could fill that same role for that defense, though. And then we move on to Jason Taylor II. This is the son of Jason Taylor, NFL Hall of Famer. And he's one of the few true free safeties in this class. And where Chris Smith had really bad testing numbers, Jason Taylor had some solid, combine numbers. Good 40, mid 4.4 speed, 6 foot, got good weight too, can fly downhill. And another pick made by the Rams where I think they drafted a starter here. I think they legitimately drafted a starter. Now, will it be right away? Maybe not. 7th rounder, that's a little bit of a harder, path to a starting position. But it's also like a 14-player draft class. So no guarantee he makes the roster either, which is where I get a little bit concerned here. But I think he's one of the better players of that 14-man class, despite where they got him. And they need a replacement of that true over-the-top free safety. They've had a lot of turnover there at the safety spot over the last couple of seasons. And I think Jason Taylor could end up being a starter by the end of the season and give him a true playmaking ball hawk type. And, think about when they drafted or they brought in Eric Weddle, out of retirement, right? Like, they played him close to the line of scrimmage, but he was also doing a lot over the top. And that's where Eric Weddle really made his money. Could Jason Taylor play that role? I'm not saying he's going to be Eric Weddle, because Weddle was a stud, especially in his prime. But could Jason Taylor II play that type of role? I think he could earn the opportunity to start in that position. And then that takes us back to the top of the video. So, guys, that is going to do it for my names of 20 different sleepers in this year's draft class. And again, just to preface the point, I think these are all guys who were drafted day 3, and I know the guys were drafted day 3. I think these guys could become starters either year 1 or year 2 of their rookie contracts. So let me hear some of your favorite sleepers down below in the comment section, and let me know what do you think these guys could start year 1 or by year 2, and then of course let me know your favorite team and who that sleeper might be for your squad. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button if you did, and subscribe if you're new to the channel and want more football content in your life. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teej, and I am signing off.